Hello everyone, and welcome to Creating with Class. That's crafty lessons and simple steps with Linda Wirt. Hi, I'm Linda, and today I'm going to be sharing with you a project that I created with using just text and a few simple images to create a unique and very personal design. So let me show you today two different shirts that I had created. The first one I created because I love my Cricut and I wanted everybody to see that. So I put together some of the words that are most commonly associated with my Cricut. And they happen to be lots of supplies, tools, and equipment that are used when I use my Cricut. So this fun shirt is a little bit neat in the fact that they're all different types of things, all associated with one of my favorite crafting hobbies. Next, I'd like to show you another shirt that I came up with. This one is a theater shirt, and I picked words associated with theater. Some of them are things like professions such as choreographer, actor, director, and along with some of the things that you use as well. So as you can see, you can do this design or this type of pattern with anything that you would like. So you can think of a hobby, an occupation, maybe a sport or activity, and put the positions that there are in that particular sport or activity. So you can use this for whatever you would like. The idea is to take a bunch of words and then place them in directions of horizontal, vertical, and then fill that in with some images wherever you have additional space. So the first thing you need to do is figure out what type of shirt you want to do. Is it an activity? Is it an occupation? Is it a hobby? And then sit down and come up with about 30 words, I'd say, all related to that particular occasion. So make sure there are some short words, some longer words. You don't want to have just all long words because this is actually going to be a little bit like a puzzle. So you're going to have to fit them together, making them smaller, larger. You might put some words together based on their size. So you really need to have a variety. When I did this, I sat down and I wrote down every single word I could think of, and then I made categories and I put short words, medium words, and then long words. So I would do that first. Think about it. What kind of words can you think about that particular activity? And then jot them down and think of other images possibly that could be related to it as well. Then we're going to figure out the pattern. So let's look at the shirts a little bit more closely so you can see the pattern that has emerged when you put down the text and images all together. So let's look at this design a little more closely. The overall design is a giant 9 by 9 inch square. Inside this square, I have more rectangles and squares that I have grouped together. So if you look real close, there's really a rectangle first right over here with the words tickets, backstage, score, fan, and scene. And then I put an image in the center. Next to it, I have another rectangle right here made up with the back side of this square. And then I have performance, director, musical across the bottom, and then a couple images in the center. If you look along the bottom, this design is actually made up of 3 different squares. I have one square here, I have another square in the center, and then a third square right here. So when you're coming up with the design, you're pretty much coming up with groups of blocks or squares or rectangles, putting the words around it, and then filling in the space with images and other words. So when you were initially looking at this shirt, it looks kind of complicated, right? You're like, oh my gosh, it's a whole bunch of words. It looks really cool and neat. But if you just take it apart and look at it, you will see it's just pretty much a bunch of rectangles and squares with words that create them. So let's look at the other design and see how I had to do that a little bit differently. Each of these designs are based on what type of words you have and the length of the words and how many words you have. So in my Cricut shirt, you notice I have a lot more words or phrases, or this one has 2 words in it. A lot more 2 words: design space, rotary cutter, infusible ink, removable vinyl. So these words are much longer. So I knew I wasn't going to be able to do the same thing as I did in the theater shirt, because this has to have longer boxes or in a rectangular shape in order to be able to use all the words that I chose that are associated with this particular hobby. So unlike the other shirt that had 3 squares on the bottom, if you notice, this is one giant rectangle and then a smaller square right here. And then in the top, I have one small little square here and then one rectangle here and then a little square here. So you have to adapt it based on what you have, which is really neat because every single shirt is going to be unique and different based on the words that you choose for that particular activity or occasion or whatever you would like your design your shirt for. So you just need to think of the spacing as boxes and squares that you're putting together and putting words going around it and then filling it in, and whatever space you have left over is where you can put those fun images that are associated with it. When you come up with your design, just make sure you have to think about how it is broken down. So don't get overwhelmed, just sit back, look at it. It's not complicated at all. It's just a whole bunch of squares and rectangles or boxes put together with some words and images inside them. So let's go on to Design Space now and see how we can create a new shirt with some words and images to make a whole brand new design. All right, so now we are in Design Space, and what I did is I clicked on New Project, which brought me to a blank canvas. I did go ahead and put the words into Design Space that I had thought of, that I brainstormed ahead of time, and then randomly assign them different types of fonts. So I just did that in order to save time for this video. Normally I don't do that. I just type the words in as I'm creating the design. But just so I could save some time for this video, I went ahead and did that and just randomly assigned different fonts that I like, that I have put down in the description box below to share with you. You're more than welcome to use those. I have found them to be very good for different types of designs, especially for t-shirts. For this design today, I've decided to create it from scratch. I haven't thought about what I'm putting where or what I'm using at all. And I have decided for the first time to do an occupation rather than a hobby or activity. So I want you to see my thought process of how I go ahead and create these. So I didn't prepare anything ahead of time other than just writing the words into my text boxes. So let's go ahead and start first with our shape. We create our design on a giant square. So I go over to Shapes and click Square. And up above here where the sizing is, I'm going to put in 9 because it is a 9 by 9 inch square that I normally do the design on. And then you can adjust it based on the size of the t-shirt. You might want to go a little bit larger if you are doing a extra large or larger than that type of shirt. And you might want to go down slightly if you're using a smaller, extra small t-shirt. A lot of times I use this design on the back of a shirt, so you definitely have more room for people to be able to see all the words rather than on the chest of a shirt. So I normally do this as a back design, but you can do whatever you'd like. The other thing I do is I put my box that I'm working in over here to the right side, because whenever you bring new text or images into the canvas, they usually default over here to the left side. And then if I had my box over here, every time I had a new word, it would be on top of my design. And then I'd be worried about dragging something where it shouldn't be or distorting my image. So I usually keep everything over here to the right because I know that is going to come in on the left-hand side. The other thing I'd like to do is change the color of my square. So I can choose either the color of the shirt that I'm putting it on or just something that has a strong contrast. So when I'm working with the text in black, it really stands out. So I'm going to go ahead and change that to yellow. The first word that I'm going to put into my design is the title. And I've decided that I'm going to make a shirt for the occupation of teacher. So I'm going to go ahead and type the word teacher in. I already have set my font to the one that I like called Avenida, and I'm going to go ahead and drag that into the center of my box, slightly off center, and I'm going to make that larger. The title of your shirt, or the main idea of your shirt, should be the largest thing on there. So you can play with the different fonts and the length of the words, but you really want the main part of it to be the largest. And sometimes I have a tendency to also stretch it a bit so it really stands out. So your eye really goes to that. So, you can do whatever you would like, but I have a tendency to try to make it so your eye goes to it pretty immediate when you look at the shirt. So I'm going to keep that there. I can always alter it once I start putting the other words on the design. Now I'm going to work on the four corners of my square, and I'm going to come up with words to border all the way around. So first I'm going to come up with the left upper hand corner, and I'm going to write in the word classroom. I am going to make that smaller and reduce it. And then I'm going to drag it up here to the corner. Now, anytime you click off of it, you'll notice it went back to the square. To make sure you're not constantly dragging your square by mistake, you want to make sure you double click your text, and that way you know you can just drag that rather than the background. I'm not exactly sure what size I want yet, but I do know I don't want it to overpower my title. But I want to create an illusion of a square here in the corner. So I think I'm going to make it a little bit larger so I can create that square in the corner that I can work off of. So I'm going to make it about that big. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come up with my right corner. In that right corner, I'm going to put the word students. I do like to keep my four corners the same font as my title, just so the eye has some continuity as it looks at the design. I do need to flip this though to put in the corner here. So I'm going to come up here to rotate and going to type in 90, and it will turn my word exactly 90 degrees. I'm going to double click that so I can grab it, and I'm going to put it over here in the corner. I don't want it to go below my title, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make that smaller just so it's just above that word. I don't want it to go too far down because I'm going to create another square or rectangle over here in this corner. So I'm going to go ahead and move that slightly smaller so I can play off of that. We're just going to keep this in this corner. All right, next I'm going to come with the bottom right hand corner, which is really going to be along the bottom. So I want a rather larger word so I can take up more space. And we're going to do collaboration as the word. I don't want it as large as my main title word, but I do want it to take up quite a bit of the bottom of my design. So I'm going to go ahead and maybe make that a little bit smaller. And I might stretch it a little also. There we go. And this is total preference. You can play around with it however you like. And then I have one more side to come up with. And this one I'm going to come up with two words. Bulletin board. And I need to flip this, and I want the words facing inward into the design. So I need to flip this 270 degrees. And I do need to make it smaller because I don't want it to take up the whole side. So I'm going to reduce that down, and I'm going to put that, if I can grab it, here we go. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to put that right here. All right. I don't want it to overpower and take up all of the side, so I am going to make that a little bit smaller because I don't want to really go past the word teacher too much. So I didn't double click, so you notice I ended up moving the box. If I double click this, then I can move it. There we go. All right, so now I have my four corners. I'm now going to go back up to this top corner. I'm going to make a square here or some type of box. So I need to come up with that other side. So I'm going to choose one of these words over here. Let's see, reading, I think this was, yes. So I'm going to go ahead and take this word and I'm going to have it create the other side of this box. So I'm going to come up here, rotate it just like I did the bulletin board, so it's facing inward. And I'm going to drag it over here. And if you notice, it goes to the back. And when it's doing that because I typed it ahead of time. So I need to go to Arrange and send it to the front. And I'm going to do that with every single word that I pre-typed and put into Design Space before I came up with my background square. I'm going to keep that right there. Now I need to come up with the other side of my square. So I'm going to look over here and see what words I have. I'm going to see what this one is. School. That'd be a good word to use. So I'm going to go ahead and I am going to reduce the size of that a bit because I don't want it to be the exact same size as reading. I don't want your eye to completely see a square. I want the illusion of a square. So I'm going to make this a bit smaller so it's not the exact same size as reading on the opposite side. And this I'm going to rotate 90 degrees. And I'm going to drag it. Oops, once again, what did we say before? It's going to go behind because I typed it ahead of time. So we want to hit send to front and it'll pop to the front. All right, and that looks good there. Now you notice I have a little space here that I have to make up for. So usually I use abbreviations to put in tiny little spaces. So here I have the abbreviation IEP, and I'm going to make that a bit smaller, and I'm going to rotate that. I'm going to hit arrange to send it to the front. And I'm going to put it right here, and you notice it's still a little too big, so I'm just going to reduce the size of that, put it next to it, and that is now going to finish this side of my box. Now I need to close the bottom. So I'm going to look for another word over here, see what I can find. Let's see, what word is this? Tutor. I like that. So tutor is still a little bit big for that space. I'm going to reduce that, put that in here. Once again, I need to arrange and send it to the front so I can see it. And it's only doing that because, like I said, I typed it ahead of time. So I'm going to go ahead and put that right on the bottom here, and that kind of closes up our box. So that allows me to go ahead and put an image inside of this space here. So I'm going to go to images, and let's see, I'm going to look for books. So I'm going to put books in the search window, click the magnifying glass, and we're going to look for books. So I actually like this one here. So I'm going to insert. I'm going to reduce that size, drag it over, and put it into that space. Could probably take up a little bit more. And just like that, you already have your first portion of the shirt done. So your eye looks at that and it pretty much sees a square right now, but we're going to fill it in with other things around it. So I'm going to go continue right here and fill out this area. So I need a word to go across here to fill in that space. So I'm going to come over here and see if I have any words. Let's see what this one is. Learn. All right, so we can see and we can drag that and see if that works. I have to arrange it and send it to the front so it'll be on top of my square. And oh, wow, that actually fits very nicely. Okay, so put that, it fills in that space between reading and bulletin board, and it still gives me enough space around the word teacher that it still stands out. So I like that word, and now I need a word here to fill in underneath. So let's go over here and see what my next word is. Feedback. So that's a pretty big word. So we're going to have to shrink that down and see if we can get that to work in that space. Once again, because I typed it ahead of time, I'm arranging and sending it to the front. Drag it over, see if it works. Still a little too big. Let's see if I can reduce that and still be able to read it. I think that works. It just needs to be a little bit taller, so I'm going to hit that unlock button, stretch it a bit because I want it to line up with the bottom of the word teacher. So therefore I can create another shape here. All right, so now we have this whole corner done. So now we're going to go ahead and keep working our way across. So before I create a new rectangle or shape over here, I want to create a border separating one side from the other. So I'm going to do that with a word. So I'm going to go into the next word I wrote, which was homework. And I'm going to take that and I'm going to turn it at 90 degrees, and it's like I'm making a border between one section of the shirt and another. But once we open up and look at the whole design, you're going to see it doesn't look like a division, but we're going to use it for ourselves just spatially. I'm going to hit arrange, send to front to make sure we can see it on top of our box. And we're going to put it right in here. We need it to match the end of the word IEP. So I'm going to go ahead and stretch that so my eye has a nice straight line. All right, so once again, I still have my title here, but I have now lined up these two. Now I can start working on this space here. So let's go over to my words that I typed up ahead of time and see what we have next. Observation. So that's a pretty big word. I don't want it to take up the whole portion, so I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. If I made it all the way across, my eye would compete with the main title and the word up here. So I don't want it to be that big. So I'm going to shrink that down. I'm going to hit it as send to front so I can see what that looks like. I'm going to bring that over here. See how it looks. Still might be just a little too big, so I might make that just a little bit smaller. All right, so I'm going to be creating a box right here that I'm going to go ahead and put an image in. Right? But I want to go ahead and put one more word underneath observation. So let's see what we have over here on the words that I wrote. Let's see what we have here. Lesson. So I think I will try using that. I'm going to go ahead and reduce that in size, but I want it to be the same length as observation because once again I am creating a giant box. So I'm going to arrange that to the front, drag it over here, and I'm going to have it be the same length as observation. So I need to bring this in so they line up. So even though they're both single words, your eye doesn't look at them and just see one because one is thinner than the other with the size of the font. So I do like that way that looks. And now I need to go ahead and finish this side of my box. So I'm going to go ahead and look what other words I might have here to the side. And I have zoom. So I want to frame out this shape here, this box that I'm making here to put an image in. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate that just like I did reading and bulletin board. This is going to go 270 degrees. I'm going to make that smaller. I'm going to send it to the front. And whoops, double click it, bring it over. And that fits great right there. All right, so now I have that size of the word to help create that box there. And I'm not sure yet what I want to put here, so let's finish this side. So I'm going to try to find a long word that can go right here to finish up that shape. And if I look at my list of words, I remember there was a long word like assessment. So I'm going to look for, here's the A right here. So I'm going to see if this says assessment. It does. So I had my list of words next to me, so I know which ones are long and which ones are short. So assessment is a bit on the longer side, so I'm going to go ahead and rotate that to 90 degrees, just like students. Excuse me. And I'm going to drag that over here and see if that works. I forgot to send that to the front, so let's send that to the front so we can see it. I'm going to put that under students. And remember, I don't want it to dip lower than my title. So I'm going to bring that back up a bit. And then students now, I'm going to unlock and I'm going to stretch it so it matches up with assessment. So now I have one whole side of my box up here. I still have this side of the box to finish, so I need another word. So let me go down here and see what else I have. Test is only 5 letters, but I can stretch that out. So I'm going to see if that will work here. I'm going to reduce the size of it and I'm going to rotate it to 90. I'm going to arrange it, send it to the front. And I'm going to bring it over here. Whoops, went too far. I'm going to bring it over here, put it in here and see how it looks. Actually, it's not too bad. I'm now just going to unlock it and stretch it so it's near the top of my title. It's going to lock that, put it flush up to the top, and I think I like the way that looks. This is still pretty big space here, so I think I'm going to come up with a word along the bottom of this box. I don't want my eye just to go to the shapes of the design that I've put, like the images, so I need to come up with a bottom to this box. So I'm going to look at my list of words here. and just randomly see what I have. Let's see what V I think was virtual. Yes, it is. So I'm going to send this to the front, drag this over, and see if it will work for this space. A little big, so we'll go ahead and reduce that. All right, that actually works. I like that. So now I have a space left here that I can put an image. And so I'm going to go over here to images. And I think, let's see, a ruler maybe, and a pencil. See if we have one of those available. Oh, I like this. There's a pair right here. So I'm going to insert that. All right, so that's a bit big. So we're going to reduce that in size. I'm also going to rotate it a bit. And now I'm going to drag this over and put it in this space. And it's a little too short. So instead of putting another word, because I don't want too many words over here, I'm going to stretch the design. Here we go. So that image now fits beautifully in there. Now I just have this space over here, and I would like to put an image. Usually next to my title, I do have some type of image. And when I think of teacher, the first thing that most people think of is I'm bringing an apple to my teacher. So I'm going to put an apple. And I like this one here, so I'm going to try that apple and bring it in. I am going to make it smaller because it does have a small space next to the title here. And it definitely needs to be brought down a bit. All right. And I'm going to bring that down so it's even with the bottom of the word teacher. But I see this negative space here that I would like to fill because I kind of want a line going down the side of my design. So I'm going to flip that. So I'm going to click on the image and come up here where it says flip. I'm going to flip it horizontally. And now my leaf of my apple kind of fits right in that space of that S. And I think I like that better. I can then even go back if I would like and take assessment, open that up, stretch it even further down, and it then fills in that space as well. You really don't want a lot of negative space in these designs because you want that illusion that everything is one big, giant connected piece. All right, so now we have the whole top half of our shirt already done. So now we're going to concentrate, excuse me, on the bottom half of the shirt. So I want to come up with some way to divide the top and the bottom, and I'll do that with a word, but I don't want to go all the way across because once again, I want my focus still to be on the word teacher. So I'm going to come over here and see what other words I have that I can use that are pretty long. I'm going to look at my list here on paper. Okay, I think there was teamwork. Here's a T, so I bet you that is teamwork. There it is. So I have teamwork. I'm going to hit arrange, send to front, and I'm going to bring that onto my shirt here and see how it looks. It does kind of compete with teacher in the fact that it is too long. So I'm going to reduce the size of that, which also reduced the height of it, which helped quite a bit. So it does not distract you from looking at the word teacher. So I'm going to keep teamwork there, and it kind of gives a little division from the top of the paper to the top of the design to the bottom of the design. Now I'm going to concentrate on filling this space over here, and I'm going to create a new box. Along the bottom, I don't want to put another word to compete with collaboration. So I think I'm going to put an image here, and I'm going to go into images, and some teachers work at a school. I'm going to put in the word school and see what comes up. Kind of looking for something that has definitely a flat bottom to it, so it is even with the word collaboration. So this has a nice flat bottom to it, and it's tall, so I'm going to insert that. It comes in brown, so I'm going to come up here and change it to black, and then I'm going to drag it down here, and obviously it's way too tall and big, so I'm going to make it smaller. So I can put it in this space here. Now the school is just an accent. I don't want it to be, excuse me, the largest. So I'm going to go ahead and come up with a side here to make up for that space. I don't want it to be a giant big school here in the corner because once again, I want my eye going to the word teacher. So I'm going to go ahead and make it just a little bit larger perhaps, but not too much more. And I'm going to come up with a side word here to make a nice enclosed box that that image is going to be in. So let's go back over to my words over here and see what I might have to come up with that side. Let's see what this is. Worksheet. All right, so this is arrange this to the front. And I'm going to have to turn this because I want this to be the side of this box. So I need to turn that to 90 degrees. I'm going to bring it over here, and sure enough it is way too big, so I'm going to reduce that in size. Drag it over here, make it bigger. All right, and collaboration could be a little bit bigger, so we're gonna make that bigger and stretch it down. There we go. All right, so worksheet is coming up with one side of the box down here, and I can make my school just a little bit bigger. Right? But I have this space on top of the school here that I want to fill up. So I'm going to look for another word and hopefully be able to use it. Course could work because it's a shorter word, so we can go ahead and reduce the size of that. Arrange it, send it to the front. Bring it over here, see how it works. Reduce the size. Just make that a little bit smaller. And there we go. Okay, so now we have a nice little box over here complete, and I want to once again come up with a border to divide out that box from the one that I'm going to create over here. So I need to come up with a word that can go right in here. So let's go over to our list of words and randomly see what we have. What do we have here? Scaffold. So that's not too long of a word. We could probably reduce the size of that and see if we could use that. I need to rotate it 90 degrees. I need to send it to the front and drag it over here. And once again, obviously it's way too long, so we're going to shorten that and see if we can, whoops, I grabbed my box by mistake, double click this. There we go. And I can go ahead and just make that a little bit bigger. There. So now that is dividing one side here, and now I'm going to go create another box here. So I want to make a little box. I don't want some big giant box here, so I'm going to make a little one. So I'm going to build off of this space here. So I want to put a word right here next to teamwork down to the word collaboration. So let's go over here to our set of words that we randomly wrote. See what we have. Standard, let's try rotating that and see if that works. I'm going to reduce the size because I can always make it larger when I get out of it. I'm going to send it to the front. I'm going to bring it over here, and it is a little too big, so we're going to put that right here, enlarge it a bit. There we go. It's still a little too big of a space, so I think I'm going to put a couple more words down here so I have a small image and not a really large image. So let me look over here for our words again and see what I can do to build up the bottom here. Actually, I think that might even be too long, so let's see what kind of words we have. Let's look at what G is. Grades, that will work well. All right, so I'm going to hit arrange, send to the front. And I really like the font that I chose for that as well. So I'm going to bring that over here. It's definitely too big. So I'm going to reduce that. And I do like the way that looks. So I'm going to actually reduce the size of standard like this, because I really like the word grades to stand out like that. All right, so like I said, you can play with it. You can do whatever you want. There's no right or wrong. All right, still think that's a little bit too large of a space, so I might go ahead and put another thing right here. So let me see if I have any abbreviations left over. I think I had a couple. Let's see what this one is. Yes, I do have an abbreviation that I can use. So I'm going to take that and bring it over and put it right above grades to make this smaller. Right? Because I don't want the focal point to be the images. I really would like it to be the word. So it needs me a nice little space here. I kind of look for some clues with the image based on the words around it. So this says bulletin board. So I believe a nice small object could be a push pin. And they have lots of different push pins. I would like a solid push pin. So instead of having to bring one in and hit the contour button over and over again, I think I'm just going to look for a solid push pin like this. I'm going to bring it in. I'm going to change the color to black. I'm going to reduce the size. And I'm also going to flip the direction. And I'm going to put that right here. I'm going to make that larger. I can actually rotate it a little if I'd like. All right, I think that looks neat, right like that. All right, and that just leaves us to one little square over here that we have to complete. So I want to break up the top of it. So I'm going to come up with a couple words to put on the top of this box. So let's see what words we have left over here, if we could use them. Let's see, what is this one? Ooh, that's a long word. That's role model. I do really want that word on my shirt, so I'm going to reduce that. I'm going to arrange it to the front and see if I can make that work for this area. All right, so I'm going to just make it a little bit smaller, but I definitely need to make it taller because I don't want it to look like it kind of goes with teamwork. I want it to look separate. So I'm going to hit the unlock and I'm going to make it just a little bit bigger so it doesn't follow the same line as the bottom of teamwork. So that works quite well. I still want another word underneath it. So let me see what other words we have left, if I have any. Here I have this one. Curriculum, that might work. It might have to just make it smaller or arrange it to the front. And it's a little too long, but I'm going to go ahead and reduce the size of that. And I would never put a two-word title underneath another two-word title because your eye won't be able to differentiate the difference. So we're going to go ahead and put a one word underneath a two-word title. And I like that. So now we just need to close this up by putting something here on the side. So I have 3 words left. So let's see what the R is. Rubric, that would work because that's on the shorter side. So let's turn that 90 degrees. Looks still a little too big. We're going to arrange and send that to the front. And bring that over. And just a little too big. We're going to reduce that a little bit more. And move that up. And that works well. And I need something facing inward on this side, so I have a complete box. So I'm going to see what other words I have left. Organizer. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate that 270 degrees so it's facing in towards my image. I'm going to have to reduce the size of that. See if it works or not. Okay, I need to arrange to the front. I'm going to reduce the size. And it's just a little bit too low because we want it to match up with the bottom of the word grades. And that works. And now I have room for my last image. And I think I will use laptop as my image for that space because it's kind of like a square. And I'm going to flip that so it's facing inward. And we'll put that right in there, unlock it a little bit, stretch it just a little to take up more space. And there you go. And that's my completed design. So what I'm going to do now is hide my square so we don't see it anymore. I'm going to highlight all of the words and images and click group. I'm going to drag that over to the center here of the canvas. And to be able to really see the design and what it would look like on the shirt, I'm going to go and click on the blank canvas, and I'm going to change the color to the color of my shirt. And then up here in the upper left-hand corner between the two zeros of the grid, I'm going to click that twice and get rid of all the lines so I can see exactly what it looks like. And I really like that. I think it's a pretty neat design using the different texts and images having to do with that occupation. I hope you enjoyed learning how to do this. As you see, it looks complicated, but it's just a little time consuming. Like I said, I think the biggest time consuming part of this whole activity is the fact that you have to come up with all the words. So once you've done that, it's a lot of fun. You're just creating boxes and putting the words around the box and then choosing a fun image to put in it, and then just putting them together around a titled word for your design. I will down below in my description box have the words that I used along with the fonts for this shirt, as well as the Cricut Attic shirt and the theater shirt. So if you want to recreate any of those, you can use those words and those fonts that I have listed below. I hope you've enjoyed this and will try making your own shirt. Please, if you do, join my Facebook group. The link is located down below in the description box, and share your design with the rest of us so we can see it. And I would love to hear your feedback and answer any questions that you have in my Facebook group. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a lot of fun creating your own text pattern design.